Thank you very much for accepting our invitation of IGU Young and Early Career Geographers for Geography and Sustainability Working Group to support us for organizing this year's GeoNight event called Publishing Geography Today, Open Access, Inequalities, and the Future of Scientific Writing, which will be a series of interviews with IGU professors and officials. We are very honored to have you in our interview. Thank you very much.
This revolution shifts the focus towards quantitative approaches in determining what constitutes high-quality scientific research and acceptable results. 19th century sociologists like Auguste Comte, the so-called father of positivism in the social sciences, can finally say their dreams have come true. Positivism indeed gained prominence as a foundational doctrine in numerous social or human sciences, particularly in sociology, geography, anthropology, and various other disciplines. Indeed, as your question implies, global sciences have led to the development and spread of this method, which is now used to evaluate scholars, universities, and even entire countries. This being said, let's go back to the specifics of your question. Does it threaten methodological pluralism? Well, I'm not going to be original here in saying yes and no. It depends. The problem is not so much methodological in my mind, but rather epistemic pluralism. That is, the acceptance that there exist different ways to conceive and practice sciences. And see, therefore, the answer to the question is yes, there is a problem or a threat in the only way to do scientific work is in reference to falsification, hypothesis, testing, facts, and proofs. The answer is no. If geography, along with other social sciences, is not trying to explain or to prove, but to understand, to comprehend all those things that happen, here, there, everywhere. However, as I mentioned earlier, it also depends. It depends where you are, because we can say that there exists a geography of geographies depending on your geography specialties, but also depending on the countries or regions of the world where there is more or less epistemic pluralism. In IGU, we are well aware of these situations, but the institution nevertheless speaks in favor of epistemic pluralism and consequently methodological pluralism.
I think as we think about publication cultures and whether or not different types of research are being valued the same way, I think we really get at the heart of the fact that research is evolving very, very quickly, and that some of the ways in which we conduct research have long legacies and others are really new. But I want to say in particular that each publication or each journal, each place that people are publishing cultivates their own sort of culture. So every journal, for example, has a culture of its own, and it emphasizes different subdisciplines within within the broader geography discipline. And so I guess as a human geographer who relies on qualitative data and often in-person interviews and participant observations and other types of data that are sort of in place when we're working with communities, some of it takes months to collect. And so I understand that it can kind of feel like these efforts sometimes are undervalued in journals, and that especially journals that maybe focus specifically on high-level modeling of secondary data sets. I think sometimes those become very persistent in our minds and as to how research is being done. But I also want to present sort of a perspective that there's a wide range of journals out there, and many of them do value field-based qualitative research. And I think the challenge for each individual scholar is to figure out what journals really speak to the individual scholar's identity and in terms of as a researcher and to their specific research topics and strategies and methods. I think that when we really look at how those journals have evolved, they evolve because of people who are engaged with them and people who are contributing to them. So as we think about like what is the evolution of a journal over time, I would say the way to influence how a journal works is to not only to submit your work, but also to become a regular and dependable reviewer, to join the editorial board, to eventually become an editor, really seek out those journals that are doing the things and highlighting the research and the types of research that we think is valuable. And by we, I mean each and every one of us has an individual perspective on what research, what methods, what strategies, what perspectives are valuable, and to invest in those places. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of journals that we could publish in. I think when we call out those journals that are valuable to us, that are doing the things that we as scholars want to see done, then those are the journals that thrive. And so investing our time in those places is really, I think, important, and shaping those journal cultures happens through the investment of the individuals who are involved in the editorial boards and the reviewers and so forth.
I see here the role of quantitative revolution in geography. After this quantitative revolution and coming off with the GIS and remote sensing data sets, these things has revolutionized some of the sub-disciplines of geography, and they have the leverage, they have advantage if they are working with these data sets, using the models and all, and trying to create an in situ of that model, but still depending on large scale data sets prepared by uh, you know various generalization techniques, interpolation techniques, so exactly not fitting to the place based requirement, or not very much suitable for a small scale study, but the field work is a very essential thing or the core thing in geography, and we try to promote the field research, but definitely the longitudinal research, field-based longitudinal research outcomes are somehow being marginalized. In geography, we go for looking into location, we go for looking into place, space, and the pattern which are coming out of it. So the place-based research has remained a very core part of our understanding. But because of these global data sets coming in a large number and global models are there, uh, cloud platforms are there, they are using algorithm to come out with these results, and uh, people are understanding them, learning them, making their skills upgraded, and they are now analyzing all those things. And journals are also expecting those complex things. But the main problem or the main thing behind all these type of research is the present system of research assessment methods for career growth. This research assessment method is also quite quantitative in nature. If you are publishing in a very high impact factor journals, you are getting a good promotion in your career. If you are publishing in a mediocre or low profile journals, maybe you have to compromise with your career growth. So, and the journals are basically uh, getting benefit from this type of ecosystem which has been created. So you are very much right that the present scenario is such that we are now going to more with the generalized, studies rather than focusing on a very place-based study or location-based studies. While this generalization also comes from this location or the place, because the place and location gives the pattern which all these models and are going to come out. So we try to see them these patterns, identify the pattern, and looking into the pattern from the past and present, we go for forecasting the future scenario. But yeah, heavy data driven, heavy methodological driven, complex methodological driven, approach are nowadays very much popular, and they are getting good space in all this publication domain.
Open access comes from a movement associated with the development of global science. Finally, it's because it's more global, that globalization of science in a sort of, that the question of open access comes, and also because there are more and more private academic editors. And by the cost of them, it can be more and more a question. And the government, the academic push for open access. And I remember also an illustration called Open Science Taxonomy, published in 2015 on a sort of platform for a figure, and the name is Figshare. And by this way, Figshare, of course, it's accessible to all freely. And it's interesting because this illustration lists about 20-25 terms using the word open, from open access to open data to open source and also open methodology. Donc, it's a very important way to think that with open science in a sort, but it's not only the question of the publication of an article, the result of research, but also to open everything in science. And there are some problems, but for example, with the data, but it's another issue. But in relation to the first question, it also mentions open methodology, as I told. The Belgrade Declaration, which emerged around 2000, aspires to offer open sources and archives. It's also, as you know, more and more that you are encouraged to put your article, even if it's not finished, on some platform for sources, but also after that for archives. But all of that come with internet. And it's crucial to remember that open science requires, firstly, an internet access. And in the most capacity and the most smoothly and the most in a continuous flux, to have this capacity to access to internet. And this is the first potential obstacle, is indeed access to the internet. And we know that, for example, in some African countries where I can exchange with some colleagues, that sometimes they told me that they don't have an easy access to internet. And it's a first obstacle. And for that, now UNESCO and the International Science Council, for example, which IGU is a member, along with various international organizations and also national organizations, are working hard to ensure that science is accessible and free. They do this by developing many platforms, which, by the way, cost money to maintain. This is a public investment, and it's a cost for the public academic, but this is finally the sort of the end of I think that we need to push that and to keep that. It's very important. And they do this by developing many platforms, and as an open access, it's also interesting because as open access has grown, the cost of private subscription-based access has increased too. For example, for the academic institution, for libraries, the cost increased. And this is a problem as such because it sets, again, limits to gain access, but it has also led to discussion about quality. And sometimes we can have some debate about the question is open access associated with lower quality resources? And I think that many academics journal supported by a public publisher as Open Edition that you can find on Open Edition. This is a free platform with articles from many academic journals published by public editors, that they are at a very high level of quality. For example, CyberGeo, BelGeo in French, but also in English, in Spanish. You can find this. And I think that they do a remarkable job of maintaining their circulation and ensuring the high quality of the articles they publish. Another issue I notice is that you should focus just as much on the debate surrounding open science as an open access. Now more than ever, science must be viewed as a common heritage, a public good for everyone that must be shared to address global issues such as the environmental crisis. This is inside this question.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit of a fake news, to be honest with you, that this model is more democratic. I mean, it shifts the responsibility of paying for the articles from the libraries, maybe to the individual researchers. And I don't really think that helps a great deal unless those researchers are fortunate enough to have resources. So I don't think, to be honest with you, it's done anything really to democratize publishing. If anything, we might consider that it's entrenched the inequalities and inequities that already existed. Now, I work primarily now in Nanjing University, which is relative to most universities around the world, is very well resourced. And but even I, with access to quite generous research funding, we find that publication charges for many of these journals really, really excessive. And I have very strong views, and I don't know whether this will be going off topic at all, but I would like to share them with the world, if the world is listening to us. That I think that the academic publishing model is actually broken or close to being broken. And part of it is, as we're talking about now, the open access issue and the cost of to individual researchers of publishing their research. But if you think about this model of academic publishing, the researcher like you or I has the idea for the research, raises the funds to do that research through whatever avenues are available to us to do that. Maybe a National Research Foundation would provide the funding. Maybe in some cases you might be able to get private funding or whatever, I don't know. But the point is that the individual researchers raise the funding, do the research. Then they analyze their results and write the paper. Then they send it to the best journal that they can think of that's suitable for that particular topic. And that journal then sends out to 2 or 3 or sometimes more referees who do the work for nothing, right? So they are basically assuring the academic quality of that research. And then if it's good enough, the editor says, that's good, but you make these changes, you make the changes, again, you work, you go back, the paper's accepted and it's published, and then you pay the journal to publish it. Now, you've raised the money, you've done all the work, you've written the paper. It's been refereed by people who do this for nothing, including sometimes ourselves, of course. That's how the network works. And yet it's the academic publishers who make the money out of all the work that you've done. So fundamentally, that seems to be undemocratic, because it's just a way of, to me anyway, of increasing the wealth of 1 or 2 or 3. You know who they are. I won't name them in public, but we all know who the big academic publishing companies are. And they are making serious profit out of the kind of work that we do. So I'm not wild about as you can probably gather from this, about that model, because I think it basically puts all the onus of the work and the payment on individual researchers. And that's clearly inequitable if, as is the case for many countries, there is not the same access to research funding as we might enjoy here in China, where, I want to paint this picture that money is freely available here. It's not, it's highly competitive. But my experience is it's more easily available here than in many countries. And certainly in places like South Africa, it's very difficult to raise the kind of money that we're talking about to publish your really good work in a good journal. It's impossible for some to do that. So I don't think the model is particularly democratic at all. I think it's painted that picture, but for me, it's not. And the business of academic publishing is exactly that. It's a business. And we at the coalface are the laborers who are providing the work that enables those companies to make profit. And I'm not a radical socialist by any means, but I lean probably a little bit to the left when it comes to these matters, and I don't like the model. If I say any more, I might get myself into trouble.
I agree. I think that many of the fees for open access are prohibitive. I think open access as a concept is excellent. The idea that journal articles and knowledge should not be, we shouldn't have gatekeepers who can access it and who can't, on all levels. I think that, when we start to look at the creation of knowledge and how knowledge evolves, that we need to really think about who is accessing and who's not accessing, and who's contributing and who's been gate kept out of contributing to these different processes. However, with those fee structures, I think we are systematically eliminating groups of scholars who can't afford those high fees. And I think that this is a concern that's shared around the world. I think it depends on where you're located geographically, what the investment is of your university or your government in terms of providing resources. I think it's gendered. I think it differs by subdisciplines as well. So I think all of these different dimensions are really important to consider in terms of open access, because it isn't truly open access to everyone, not in the way it's currently laid out. I think that, some of what's really important about creating open access and the ways in which we might think about minimizing some of that open access, some of the hurdles to using it might include things like collaborative research that can leverage funds, right? Research that involves scholars from different universities or different places, different geographies, who might have more resources or can combine resources. I think collaboration often helps us transcend some of the barriers that are there. But on the journal side, I think that scaling the costs is a first step. I mean, open access, honestly, I think we should have open access to all our journals. And I see one of the big barriers there is the desire of the publishers to earn a fair bit of money from the research that is published there. And I think that there's a huge inequity there, not only for the researchers trying to publish, but the idea that so much of the research is taxpayer funded or funded by specific grants and institutions. And then researchers are often required to pay to publish that research. And so there's an extractive quality there too that points to the need to reimagine how publications and fee structures are oriented and who benefits and who's being left out of that process.
So much. I was expecting this question because the purpose or the main, value system of this open access is coming from the open science initiative of UNESCO. And the purpose of the open science was to keep the knowledge open in public domain so that more proliferation can take place, more the new innovation can reach to the people very fast. The area those are lagging behind also, they can get benefit from the knowledge being generated from the global north and coming to the global south and vice versa. But the problems came when we started publishing open access, but we created a system where we started coming for article processing charge, APC. I see this is the main culprit of all the core value which was attached with this open science and open access in publishing is somehow being compromised because of this article publication charge. And for Global South, because I represent the Global South, the research scholars from India, research scholars from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, and neighboring Sri Lanka, and so many other countries, neighboring countries, they face this problem very severely. We are not economically equal to the global north. So global north have a specific grants or funds for supporting the APC. We don't have that specific grant or fund always available to support APC for our publication. And it is very much clear from the global publication that the countries, those has invested more into the APC, they are now in a very high rank in global publication, ranking. So, like recently, the China has come out with this. They are promoting this open science, open access, giving APC to their research scholars, and so The publication has gone number of publication has gone very high in China in recent 10 years or 15 years. But the countries, those are still struggling with so many things and are not very much coming out with this uh, publication support type of grant. They have the grant for research, but there is no publication support grant attached with that research grant. So you can utilize those grants for other purposes like doing the field work, uh, collecting the data and all. But when we submit the article for publication, we face the severe problems. And we try to request several times to the editor and to the journal that for the waiver, but they are also opposing this thing like because of the cost associated with the running of the journal and all, they cannot give the waiver and all these things. So here the problem is still like the gap between the global north and south, east and west are still existing. We haven't we around 20-25 years from now we started this open access publication and open science and all, which has come to in a big way in our country also. But the main problem is this APC. As I have told you, this ecosystem of publication is so much lopsided uh, to a certain part of the world that still this gap is existing, and we have to come out with some model where uh, the government can promote or the university can promote at their own scale to support the APC. Some of the initiative has been taken by my government also, like one nation one subscription scheme has come up by the government of India, and they have identified some journals where if my articles are being accepted for publication directly from the government of India, the APC will be given to the journal from that scheme. My University of Delhi, also gives some partial support for open access publication, but still that partial support is not sufficient to cater the need of large amount of money these open access publishing houses are asking for from us. The solution behind this is like we always talk about the pooling of resources, creating a hub, but we never go for practically implementing those things. If the big journal houses can pool resources together, can use cloud platforms together, can use a staff and their resources. They can share their staff and resources. They can minimize the cost to a larger extent. And then they can promote, or from that money, they can support the Global South scholars to promote for more, good work. We have good research scholars. They do good work, but every time we are struggling with this model of, APC. And because we try to try to adopt to the global, uh, working style, or we can say that the research evaluation system. So the government of India and the others has implemented those schemes like a promotion completely based on, impact factor publication, number of articles published in Scopus journals or SCI index journals. But how to publish, like how to get this funds support is not available here. So it's this is a big contradiction. Like we are implementing the policies directly from taking from somewhere else. For it's completely quantitative one, but we haven't created the basic environment or the infrastructure to support that type of evaluation system. So, my humble submission will be that if this open access publication has to go, uh, this should come, more and more journals should come under different societies. Okay, so I see that the journals, those are being supported by some societies or universities, they don't charge for publication. But are they going to be recognized for the promotion or the career advancement? This is the big question. Because when I go to submit my article in a local journal, I don't think so. They are going to value it. Maybe my work is quite good and quite contributing for societal benefits. But still, because it is not enrolled in a Scopus index system, it is not there in SCI index system. They don't consider it for promotion and all. So this is the imbalancing situation we are facing here, and we have to come out with some solution, looking into creating more good space, infrastructure, and fund support for APC, if the APC model is going to exist for long. Otherwise, in my opinion, gradually we have to remove this APC system, and there should be some global consensus or global system where the government or different governments or nations can join hand together to support the APC to run those journals, big houses, journal houses.
It is strategic to combine scientific rigor with a local focus, in my opinion, and only then to pursue international visibility whilst avoiding the financial burden of paying for publication. This is very important, I think. Here are several types of publication strategies that can be adapted to these conditions. It is therefore important, in my opinion, first and foremost to prioritize free or low-cost journals and platforms. This is really the first step, but also to make use of institutional repositories and open archives, as I told, to work through networks and co-publication. And finally, to ask oneself for whom and for what purpose. Yes, this is also very important to think about for what you have to publish or for what you want to publish this article. For academic career, or as we told, for national career, but not in academic system, for example, because I know a lot of our PhD students find a job in a local or regional level as a researcher. Not exactly private researcher, but you can also be private researcher, but also public researcher, but in public as servant officer, and in municipalities, in regional council, in different council. And this is also why it's very important to think what the purpose of this article, to have a link to send the abstract and the synthesis to a local stakeholder, or to continue in an academic career. And this is also a part of the step for this publication. For whom and for what purpose one is publishing at this stage of one's career, and first to adapt the language also and scope of publications. As I told, publish in the local or regional language in national or regional journals when the primary objective is to reach decision makers. I remember sometimes, one time I published an article for in a sort of it was a local case studies around Paris, and I published it in English in an English in cities, and finally I think to myself, okay, I have less readers for this article that if I have published it in a French local journal or European journal, because it was in a local case studies. And finally, there are less people who read and knows and finally can use it that if I publish in a French or in a French journals, in a French-speaking journals, at least. Not really a French journals, but at French-speaking journals. And finally, there are now also other formats for dissemination besides the scientific article, particularly with the framework of a scientific program or during the course of research, because now we have blogs, we have films, we have also cartoons. And for example, I remember at the last scientific program I participate, a team inside for work package decided to publish the result, the report, in a cartoon for the skateholder. It was for bicycle mobility, and it was very good because this is also a way to publish, to disseminate the result of research. And be mindful of protecting also yourself against predatory publishing. This is also very important. This is what I can say. You are on mute, Gabriela.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much for all these different perspectives and for your thoughtful and well-documented answers. I am confident that everyone who will watch this interview will have very much to learn from your insights. So this interview was addressed especially to young and early career geographers, and more particularly to those working in under-resourced research contexts. It speaks to the challenges of limited funding, the pressure of meeting high international publication standards, and the constant expectation to achieve visibility through citation, sometimes that often remains beyond one's direct control, aside from the possibility of paying for open access publication when resources allow. And it also reflects the realities of balancing these demands with everyday professional and personal constraints, with local cultural contexts, where continuing one's research often requires persistence, adaptability, and a deep commitment to one's passion, sometimes despite limited support and while managing multiple responsibilities. So once again, Professor Nathalie Le Marchand, thank you very much for the support you provide to Young and Early Career Geographers Commission and its Geography and Sustainability Working Group, and for your time and dedication to prepare this interview, for your engagement in contributing to our discussion. Just to wrap up, if you have some final remarks or conclusions or recommendations to make us.
Thank you very much also for this interview. I'm very happy to share with you and to early career my things about that, my thought about this question. This is a very, very important question for everyone in geography, but also in other disciplines. But really, I'm happy about that. And that I would like to put that at the last moment, that I think that we really need to prioritize public academic publishers, because I think that this is also a way to come back again at something less unequal, but also with more exchange, real exchange. I think that peer reviews within a system of action and mutual recognition, the end of impact factors, and hosting also on public platform. I think that this is, in my opinion, this is a way also to limit the power and also the power of this system and private academic publisher. And yes, I know that, of course, once again, this require public investment rather than the outsourcing of science to private companies. But science is a common good and must not be commodified or privatized for the profit of a few. And it's why also I think it's very important to fight again how we are the limits now. We are at the big limits of these systems. And thank you again, Gabriela, and to all your IGU Commission on Sustainability for that.
It's my honor to having you here at the interview. Thank you very much for accepting and for your continuous support to our commission and for IGU in general. And I hope we'll have some other occasions to meet and develop more this topic or some other topics of interest for young geographers and not only.
I will
Thank
be
you very
happy.
much.
Really. If we are in Istanbul and some of your colleagues of the IGU Commission, I will be very happy too.
Actually, you are invited to our one of our sessions,
Yes.
which will tackle you. If you remember, I told you at the beginning of the interview about a session that we are planning about young and early geographers, particular contexts of work, not only for publication, but in general for career development.
Yeah.
So we would be very glad to have you there and share your experience with us. We hope we will have local audience from young geographers from Istanbul as well. So you're more than welcome to be part of our session.
Thank you. I will be happy. Yes.
It will be one not an atypical session, let's say, not only will be less scientific, but more panel session debate.
Yes, but it's very important too. Yes, really, I agree. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you one more time, and have a wonderful day ahead.
Yes.
So I'm the review editor of several journals, international, usually the open access model ones. And in the process of being a review editor, one is required to seek referees or reviewers for submissions. And it's becoming increasingly difficult. To the extent, again, I'll just go back to something I said before. I think this model is breaking, if not already broken. A recent example would be a journal, I won't name it, in which I had to send a paper which looked perfectly good to me in terms of its subject matter and its suitability for the journal, to more than 30 reviewers before I could find somebody who was prepared to do it. So, that's a consequence. Sometimes that's a consequence of the kind of niche of the submission, which might be just a little bit, off-piste, as it were, or a little bit left field. So if it's not core, it's sometimes difficult to find some. But most of the time, it's because the reviewers don't have enough time, and they certainly don't get enough reward for doing this. And it's hard work to review a paper effectively. And so I think there is a tendency for what we might call the less mainstream journals, especially, to struggle to find reviewers for papers. And I don't know where we're going to go with that. I don't know how this model can be sustained going forward if we can't find reliable, creditable referees to referee what are ostensibly good papers, and particularly because, of course, it's now totally compulsory in many countries even for a master's degree that a paper be submitted for publication. It's certainly the case in China, where essentially you can't submit your thesis for publication in many, I don't know whether it's across the country. It's certainly the case here in Nanjing University, where a master's student has to submit and have at least one paper accepted before they can put their thesis together. So again, at risk of going off in the wrong direction or in another direction, all of this is increasing the gap between those that have and those don't have. So the north-south divide is certainly there. And then if you get onto the issue of a language, which I know is going off the topic, but I feel that I should say something about this too. I am incredibly lucky because my first language is English. My home language is English. It makes it incredibly much easier for me to write and therefore to get published. So there are huge disadvantages for non-English speaking countries in this academic publishing landscape. And again, this just increases the inequities. The north-south divide becomes even more marked because of this. I think that's probably going off the topic of refereeing, but it just sprang to mind. If you want to follow up on that, or maybe you want me to say a bit more about this, the review model and how we might get around that going forward. There's two big things there that I've raised, and perhaps I haven't finished enough for you on the reviewing problems.
Yeah, I think I probably tipped my head a little bit in the last response, but I think that regional national journals are essential to geography. I think that we have a lot of different audiences for geographers. Geographers have the audience of other scholars. Geographers have the audience of local communities, and lots of audiences in between that are part of groups that are for education or for policy making, and historians as well, who are looking at how geographers are viewing these different questions at different scales. I think journals in general have to think about those different audiences. And as scholars, when I put together my research, I always think about, all right, what parts of my research are best targeted to framing the research at an international level, an international impact is very broad. Like how does my work in Mongolia fit with these bigger academic conversations? That's a different conversation than I might have with a policymaker in Ulaanbaatar or community member in Western Mongolia. And the same is true of the work that I do in the US. The audiences vary quite a bit. And yes, I think there are journals that are, from an academic perspective, going to be to have really high index scores, because they're the ones, at least in human geography, that are doing more theoretical work and more conceptual work. And yet, those aren't the journals that are probably the most valuable to policymakers. The policymakers are looking for a very different type of information. So I think when I put together my research, I think about the pieces of my work that can be published in these high impact scholarly journals. And I think about the pieces of my work that might be published in regional journals, for example, that have a different audience. So it's the academic index score might not be so high, but the local impact is high. And so one of the problems I have with index scores and with individual researcher index scores is that it undermines the value of work that geographers and other scholars do that isn't specifically about the academic, right? Because so much of the work that we do, especially as geographers, has place-based importance. And just depending on what area of geography you're in, maybe that's place-based importance in local political structures, or maybe it has to do with cultural resilience, or maybe it has to do with local biodiversity, right? Each of those conversations has a bigger audience and a bigger academic argument or set of precepts associated with it. They also have really important impacts potentially at the regional and local levels. And I think the index scores undermine often, they fail to see what those other impacts are. And yet, at the same time, when I review grant proposals, one of the things that granting organizations want to know is what are those impacts to community and society? Like, how is this research going to benefit the broader society? You know, we see that in many European countries, we see it in the US, that the big funding agencies want to know, you know, above and beyond some of the more conceptual theoretical arguments, what are the practical implications of the research? And I think often our regional national journals capture more of that than maybe, and that's, it's not exclusive. All of these journals are very different, but I think they have different audiences. I think they have different purposes. It's all research that academics and scholars are doing, and it's all very important, but knowing like where to place a different one paper versus another paper and who that audience is, I think that's where the valuation has to be thought about a little bit more broadly, in my opinion.
All international journals are working in the English language, and we can see it in a two-way, that if we have to disseminate our findings, our results in the global community, then you have to publish into these English journals, and they can reach to the larger audience very fast. This is one aspect, that it is going to promote the open science in a big way. And I see the role of English in a good way, that everyone can communicate easily. And it has been uh, already known as a lingua franca. And this is being reflected in the writings also. So all the articles which are being published in this open access platform journals like Elsewhere or Springer or any others they have quite they are publishing in English. And when we submit, but in another way we see it as a disadvantage for non-native English speaking people. So non-native English research scholars, when they do their research, they have to give quite a long time in refining their writings. Maybe they are writing in their regional language first, the article, and then they are converting it into the English. I have seen so many, my Chinese colleagues, they first do the research, write in English, write in Mandarin, and then they convert it into English. So they are in they are putting lots of effort and time also to do this task, to complete this task, so that they can publish it into the good international journals. Uh, the reputed international journals, when we submit the work, they have made some criteria like 30-40 criteria, and they check your articles that your article is meeting to those criteria or not. And one among those criteria is your good writing skills in English language. So if you haven't expressed your work in a better way in English, they are outrightly rejecting your work, and they are sending back that improve your English first. So so this is a very stressful situation for a young scientist or research scholars, those who has come from a village background and did their whole study until undergraduate into their local language. And you are very much right that our subject is very much place-centered, very much location-centered, culture-centered. So if I am born and brought up in a culture which is different from this global one, the we are we did our study till 12th standard in our Hindi language. And when I came to the undergraduate, doing undergraduate in Delhi University, I did, we had the choice to do either in English or Hindi because I was comfortable in expressing my views in Hindi. I chose to be in Hindi. So I was writing Hindi, my answer sheets and all, and I was reading and writing in Hindi. I could express my understanding in a better way in my regional language. But when I converted it from Hindi to English, because there is no international growth or academic growth unless until you do a minimal, mastering of the language. So unless until you are not good in writing, better your understanding, your output, your analysis or results into the English, reflecting your views, opinion in English, you are not going to get opportunity to publish in good academic journals. And it is not only the international one, but also the national journals are also asking to have your writing in English.
Okay, now let's talk about the publication language and the regional journals. In this world, we have several wonderful publications such as SVL, Nature Group, and Wiley. Well, most of the publishers, they use language in English. We often call it, this kind of journal with English is international journals. Well, on one hand, it is wonderful to use English to communicate, to use English to publish the papers. Well, on the other hand, maybe it is difficult for some research they don't know English. They are not very familiar with English, but they have some good idea based on their local language. But for them, they cannot publish papers in the English journals or international journals. Which means that in this world, we need use English to be published language. On the other hand, we need to pay more attention on the language from different countries, because geography is based on regional, which means that different area, different region has a different problem. We need pay more attention on the local situation. That's why we need to respect the journal in English. On the other hand, we also need to respect the journal in different language. I mean, only by that way, the geography for the world can develop together. And for this, I think we need pay more attention, give more respect for the regional journals based on different language. Which means that for the publication journal, they need language diversity. I do hope we can have a great data set to combine the different language journal. This world is AI world. We can use AI tools to make some translation, to help authors to know, to help readers to know the key meaning of articles maybe they from English, maybe they from other language. AI tools can help us to get the key meaning of the publishers in different language. That's why I think we need respect publication language diversity. We need promotion on the local, regional journals. And only by that way, geography can be developed together for our common future. Thank you.
Innovation go hand in hand with the diversity of expression of that innovation in shaping new concepts and new ideas. I remember it was in French, but it was also interesting that we begin to use the concept of I don't know in English how I can translate that. I try to find it. It's in French. It's débrouillardise. It's la débrouille.
Developing.
Sorry.
Sort of developing.
It's not exactly like this. I try to find it. It's. We need to find how we can resourcefulness. It's resourcefulness. This is that we can use.
Débrouillardise. I learned a new word in French.
It's a sort that as you don't have the best tools or you cannot use the framework, the template that everyone use. You try to find another way to do that you have to do, and this is in a sort of this is that we can tell, and this is also that in French the la débrouille, débrouillardise. This is something that we can we use more and more. Also, these terms come from African colleagues in the African context. African French-speaking countries, African countries, and this is very interesting. And they use this concept. It's also we can take it also in another context, and it's why also it's very important to continue to have this scientific diversity. And at the same time, with the improved performance of new tools also, as such as machine translation, even we know it's not perfect, but they are more and more better. We are also increasing our ability to read and discover new ways of thinking or to ask intangible questions in geography. Because also we can, for example, we can use an article. We know that for the machine translation, the base languages translation are in English, in French, in Spanish. But now we are more and more new tools that, and on the same tools, they are more better. They're better in another languages. And we can take, for example, perhaps Romania to French directly. Even if the translation is not perfect and often needs to be checked using another platform, it helps to broaden the possibility.
Indeed. So your question is your answer is very very profound, I would say. I really appreciate it. Especially that you reminded us of the value of place and the importance of culture and regional authenticity, which is also at the core of geographical research. When often reflected in diverse, let's say, research approaches, whether more qualitative or strongly shaped by local context. And I will also keep in mind the perspective you offer through the notion of débrouillardise. Would it be maybe making the most of the resources available that you have, which is particularly relevant in lower resource settings or in contexts that lack the conditions to apply standard methodological frameworks ad literam. But this in turn highlights the specificity of geography instead, fostering more personalized and context-sensitive scientific approaches where methods could be adapted through pragmatic proxies where resources are limited or uneven.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for providing this hope in the end, and also this broad context. Continuing along this line and thinking about the role of different publication systems, I would like to ask you, what role do you think national and regional journals still play today in sustaining geographical knowledge and diversity and specificity with place, especially for policy, education, and local stakeholders?
Okay, yes. Thanks. National and regional geographical journals play a crucial role today in sustaining context-specific geographical knowledge for policy, education, and local stakeholders. These journals specialize in highly localized case studies, regional histories, and territorial dynamics, and so keep alive detailed, place-based knowledge that may be too regional specific for international journals, and also contribute by this way at the geographicity of the discipline, reinforcing the link between spatial questions and concrete territories rather than abstracting them into generic global models. And yes, they can also directly feed regional and national policy debates. We can see, for example, with some case studies. For example, I think about one of my last articles. It's about a great controversy, a great debate around a mega mall with leisures, retailtainment, but there are a big environmental impact. And we can use this article to give at the stakeholder, at also the local policy, some information about this phenomenon at this local level, but also at another level, and also how this question, this issue is debating in another context. And yes, it's why also I think they can also directly feed regional and national policy debates. They are also widely used in national and regional universities for the teaching and learning of concepts, approaches, and also epistemology within the discipline. It's also very important for that, because when we teach at mostly national students, and they need also to learn about the national context, local context, because for some of that, they want to be, to work, to have a job in a local context. And they need also to learn by this journal the situation, the analysis of this context. And finally, far from being isolated, many national and regional journals now participate, as I told before, in digital infrastructure and open access platforms. As I told, open edition, national repertories, with increases their visibility while preserving their local anchoring, because we know that this is also something very important, which is a strong part of geography, to have this link with local stakeholder and regional also stakeholder.
Thank you very much. Indeed, there is so much to reflect on your answer, particularly regarding the geographicity, the geographic specificity of regions, which is often best preserved through regional and national publications and other types of science communication efforts. And indeed, the assessment of local impact is more meaningful at the level of national and regional debates, where research can address smaller scale issues affecting local populations, inform authorities, and shape regional policies. So these dimensions are often overlooked or, let's say, overly standardized at the continental or international level.
Yeah, and sorry, and also I can add, because this is also a way to have some funds to do some analysis, to do some researches, because we have also some for a scientific program funding by local and regional policies and national level and some council, regional council, regional committees. There are some money to pay for these local researchers.
This is something that I always appreciated in France, because I was wondered where research groups, institutions get their money compared to my country, Romania, where everything is national at the national level. So it's we undergo quite a strong competition at the national level, where only a few percent of the competitors, research teams would win every 1-2 years, depending on the program of finance. And a part of that, we don't really have regional or local level finance or funding entities, which is really a pity, because we miss a lot of research that could be addressed to local scales and to really local stakeholders, which could benefit from this kind of research, more applicative, more impactful than the one shaped at the national level with deliverables rather scientific, metrical deliverables, as we are all used to in the scientific context, but not really applied to the real needs of the society when if we think of how to address them, how to make our research more useful for them. So this local and regional finance and publications could be a way to really encourage this smaller scale research.
Yeah, sure.
I would now like to shift the focus towards early career researchers, as we are now, especially those navigating structural constraints in the publication system. So my last question for this interview would be about the types of publication strategies you would recommend to early career geographers working in under-resourced contexts.
Thank you. For early career geographers working in under-resourced context, underfunded institution, as we told, make publication budgets, limited access to paywall database, it is strategic to combine scientific rigor with a local focus, in my opinion, and only then to pursue international visibility whilst avoiding the financial burden of paying for publication. This is very important, I think. Here are several types of publication strategies that can be adapted to these conditions. It is therefore important, in my opinion, first and foremost to prioritize free or low-cost journals and platforms. This is really the first step, but also to make use of institutional repositories and open archives, as I told, to work through networks and co-publication. And finally, to ask oneself for whom and for what purpose. Yes, this is also very important to think about for what you have to publish or for what you want to publish this article. For academic career, or as we told, for national career, but not in academic system, for example, because I know a lot of our PhD students find a job in a local or regional level as a researcher, not exactly private researcher, but you can also be private researcher, but also public researcher, but in public as servant officer, and in municipalities, in regional council, in different council. And this is also why it's very important to think what the purpose of this article, to have a link to send the abstract and the sentence to a local stakeholder, or to continue in an academic career. And this is also a part of the step for this publication. For whom and for what purpose one is publishing at this stage of one's career, and first to adapt the language also and scope of publications. As I told, publish in the local or regional language in national or regional journals when the primary objective is to reach decision makers. I remember sometimes, one time I published an article for in a sort of, it was a local case studies around Paris, and I published it in English in an English in cities, and finally I think to myself, okay, I have less readers for this article that if I have published it in a French local journal or European journal, because it was in a local case studies. And finally, there are less people who read and knows and finally can use it, that if I publish in a French or in French journals, in a French-speaking journals, at least. Not really French journals, but at French-speaking journals. And finally, there are now also other formats for dissemination besides the scientific article, particularly with the framework of a scientific program or during the course of research, because now we have blogs, we have films, we have also cartoons. And for example, I remember at the last scientific program I participate, a team inside for work package decided to publish the result, the report, in a cartoon for the stakeholder. It was for bicycle mobility, and it was very good because this is also a way to publish, to disseminate the result of research. And be mindful of protecting also yourself against predatory publishing. This is also very important. This is what I can say.
From my side, if it is like an advice or a suggestion that if you have to go for a publication in open access or in subscription mode or anywhere, you try to find the journals where your works fit best and not running behind the impact factor. Geography, a good geography serves place and people and not to the journals. So we have to keep in our mind. The second thing is that the good geography needs time, attention, and care. So we have to follow these things. Like we have to give more time to do longitudinal studies, understanding the things in a better way, and then come out with good findings, good solutions. The another component is that the journal prestige is a poor proxy. So you don't rush. Your research are very valuable component. So you value to your research and not to the very image of the journals, like a very high impact or like this one. And for young and early career researchers, their well-being are more important than their publication list. So I have seen some cases that the students are such in a stressful situation when they have to submit their findings or PhD work, and because of the criteria and all, they don't have 3 or 4 Scopus journal publication, and still they are in queue and struggling with the review process, and they are in a situation they don't know that the journals are going to accept it or not, and they go in depression in extreme cases and all. So don't go to that level. You understand your capabilities and all these things, and keep balance between the health and your achievement or publication and whatever we can see. Your health is very important component for young and early career geographer. And as I see, we have also gone by this process. Rejection is normal. Keep it in mind. So this is not a verdict on your work. Rejection doesn't mean that your work is of inferior quality. You can get better journal and they can accept your work. And there are so many things involved in this process. Maybe that the editor has not looked your work in a full length, or you can say in a good way, or maybe the reviewer did not concentrated on evaluating the work or giving the time to evaluate the work. And in this way, some negative comments or some negative decision has been passed for your work. So don't take that rejection normal, and this is not uh, the verdict on your work. And another thing is that the publication is human-made system. This publishing is the human-made system. It is not a natural law. So don't be worried much about the things, and try to come out with the original idea. Try to come out with some good books also. I have seen like in last 10, 15, 20 years, good authentic book for undergraduate students are not coming. The people are not preferring to write the authentic books for undergraduate students because they are not going to get more point for writing a book. They are going to get more point for publishing in an impact factor journal. So they are not wasting, or it's like they are not giving much time to write a book. But this is very important because you are contributing to the subject domain. You are contributing to the basic knowledge system, the conceptual part of the subject, the theoretical part of the subject. These are some of the things which we have to balance. And I try to give from my side to our young and early career geographer this view that you balance between the writing of books also, monographs and all, and also contributing with your articles so that you can balance both and you can get your academic profile by being in this evaluation system and also contributing to the subject domain.
Okay, now I would like some potential suggestion for young research. I have 3 points. The first is that please try to publish your paper. Maybe for some local journal, regional journal, maybe for some international journal. Whatever the journal is good or not, that's okay. Try to publish your first paper because only by that way you can have yourself be seen by other colleagues. Second, when you publish your paper, please be patient because it may be good publishing more paper, but it's not good to publish papers as fast as you can. Because that if you're patient, if you make more time for research, maybe you will have some deep thinking for your work. If you can have some new idea based on research, you will enjoy your research. You will enjoy your result. Especially if your research can make potential contribution for the local development, it will be so wonderful. Third, please make your connection with other colleagues, especially with international colleagues, because we can learn from each other, especially we have different backgrounds. We can learn from each other. Especially if you haven't enough funding for research, please try to find some chance from other countries. Maybe you will have chance to change your world. And I want to give the final comments, but not the last. This world developing so fast. Geography is also developing so fast. Well, we have so many challenges, not only on geography research, but also on geography publication. We do hope we can work together, move forward together, and then we will have common wonderful future together. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.